Hi folks, you're with Tacitus today at your Pushback channel. Thank you for joining this live stream. In this chat, I'd like to talk about how racial politics and racial gender activism has entered into the funding governments all across the West supply for startup businesses. What I've noticed is that an increasing amount of money is being dedicated to businesses just because they're non-white or non-male, rather than any particular merit that business or business idea or business product, whatever it is, service may have. Now, what brought my attention to this was reading through the various lists in Australia of what are declared the top startup businesses in the nation, and there's various bodies, alleged business bodies, state governments and so on, the federal governments that have these lists, and some of them are beyond laughable. The one list, for example, I'm looking at here, which is one of the prominent ones. There is not a single not one straight white male in the whole list. And I just don't believe that. Not one. The majority of them are non-white males. Third are non-white female, white or non-white females. There was one gay white guy in the whole list. So I suppose there is some white representation in there in terms of males, but effectively it's a government subsidy program for non-white, non-male people, or certainly non-straight people. So that you have to be a minority, and if you're a minority, the threshold you have to meet to get the funding is obviously very, very low. But if you're a straight white male, the threshold to get the funding is much higher. Now, I don't have a problem with a good business idea, whoever it comes from, getting funded and getting supported. I think that's great. But the idea of this focus on you've got to be non-straight white male before you get a dime, and then you have to meet a very low standard of evidence or proof, rather, that before the funding is triggered. So anyway, they have some trade shows and things like that where the so-called entrepreneurs can strut their stuff, and so I go down and have a look. Now, it's good that these people are getting up and having a go, but they're not there's no risk to themselves. They're just being gifted taxpayer money for ideas and so on that are never going to fly. So it's obviously ideological. They're just being given the money along ideological lines, and it's taxpayer money. But what they're also doing is they're taking money away from the straight white males who do have a successful business idea, or one at least has a good prospect of success, and that's as much the concerning bit as the money that's being wasted purely for ideological reasons. If you're a black lesbian, yep, let's support you. Is the idea any good? Who gives a shit? Just hand the money over. And so meeting some of these people, and some of them are well-meaning, and I'm sure they want to be successful in some way, but I'm just thinking of, there's a row which was all made up of just female entrepreneurs of this particular row, Iowa in the trade show. And what struck me is none of them had even ever had a job in their lives. So they've never understood what it's like to have to build something, to make decisions, to be responsible, to see how does something work. Well, that didn't work, I'll try this. That they have no concept of that, and that they've got no employment history and the ones that did have employment history have been in some radicalised NGO or in the public service or something like that. They haven't been in the private sector and have never had to make commercial decisions. So they're so far out of the ballpark, somebody you would pick anyway. And some of the ideas they had were flavour of the month stuff. Like one had put together a certain series of flavoured drinks, and okay, fine, but there's nothing unique or novel about it, or anything. You can't bring it to market at a price. Yet taxpayer money had paid for all the marketing, all all the packaging and all the stuff. So again, no risk, and a lot of advisors who are very low quality themselves, by the way, a lot of advisors around these people, and they're saying, "We'll do this, do that, and by the way, it won't cost you a penny. The taxpayer will pay for it." So these people are just nodding, "Oh yeah, okay." I mean, it's a bit like free legal aid for illegal aliens. They can spend months, years going through the court system, all at the taxpayer expense. Oh yeah, well, why not? If they had to shell out their own cash or produce their own evidence, they wouldn't do it, or couldn't do it. So this is the standard. So it's a very low standard of person who gets approval, and a very low standard of product or service that they're offering. There was a range of confectionery, but the idea of the company was they would only employ gay people. It was a gay only sort of gig. I've got a problem with that. If the discriminatory nature of that business should have disqualified it. What if you said, well, we're only going to set up a straight white male only company? Oh, you can't have any money then. So that would have been shouted down and screamed down, probably would have made headline news even. But if these guys want to do it, then that's okay. Other alleged entrepreneurs who aren't white are also allowed to just hire their own ethnic people from their own ethnic background, rather than hiring people across the board. So that I've got problems with that too. So it's creating the very racism and things like that that these government people who are spending this money and throwing money at these sort of folks, they're saying, well, we're solving racism by doing this. No, they're not. They're creating it, and also they're lowering the standard. They're lowering the bar to a very great extent. So now some of the businesses that have been successful or appear to be on the surface. So I have a look at those, and just looking around, they've all seemed to have either an investment firm that is getting a 200% write-off from the government, so special taxation write-off. So they're just putting money in that to get the taxation write-off thing. Or where the government or a government department is effectively buying their product even before it's been produced or made or created. They're just buying an early prototype or something, and that doesn't seem. That's not right. These are businesses that are not succeeding commercially. They're not producing the best product at the best price, or the most novel product, or the most interesting new product, or anything like that. They're just completely relying in one way or another on taxpayer subsidy to get by, which means males. Again, if they've got a great idea and a great product, wow, I'm all for it. Make the money available. Anybody with a good product. Or with a product that's showing particular promise, I think it's fine that they get subsidised, and it doesn't matter whether they're not white or not male. A good product is a good product. Subsidise it, help it, nurture it, try and get it off the ground. But these are products and services that are never going to get anywhere, and never were, and never could. I mean, you had to do a proper business plan on them. They wouldn't have made it out the gate, but yet they're attracting large-scale government investment. And it's a joke going through these lists, just looking at, it really is a case of how many black lesbians can you get on the front page. It's just that. The concern is they're robbing money or taking money away from putting it into productive. Now, the sort of temperament and character that makes a successful entrepreneur, or where the chances of success are greatest. There's no guarantee, of course, in these things. It is a risk. So the sort of people that do it must be very focused, very disciplined, prepared, or you do it. If you've got to put in an 18, 20 hour, you do it. You've got to do what is going to make that business venture successful. It's necessary to succeed. No, I don't see in any of these people. I mean, even in white people, it's rare. Who've worked in commerce, not that many people are prepared to make the sort of sacrifices that are necessary to make that business venture successful. And I've seen white businesses go under, not because they haven't got a great product or a great idea or a great service, but because the people get greedy and start bickering over the money, or they want, no, I want a top of the range BMW and I want it now. I'm not prepared to wait 6 months. You get that with white people who should know better. They've been in commerce. So the standard of people, once you get outside of that, is very low, and that's where they're throwing the money. And I think that's a terrible shame. But it shows again the racialisation, the politicisation of something like this. And a successful business sector creates jobs for everybody, creates wealth for everybody. It creates tax revenue that the government then uses for some of these social programs. So a successful business sector must be paramount in the mind of any government, but instead they're throwing money at black lesbians with no work experience and with dumbass ideas, and that's a tragedy. You've been with Tastus today, your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.